Well, welcome everybody to our Sunday service. I'm Pastor Isabel.
Sorry, Pat.
I'm back. Hi, all. So we're going to get started. Now, our theme today is what's in your backpack. So for an activity later, you might want to go get your backpack, no matter what's in it. We're gonna tool up today for the journey. So as a motivating start, please join in our hymn, Love Will Guide Us.
Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from grief to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from grief to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night.
Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Manhattan. My name is Tom Phillips and I'm the convener for today's service. Erica Hewitt from the UUA writes, some of us are bringing our best selves to this space and some of us are bringing our struggling selves, including pieces we might be ashamed of. All of us are welcomed here and all of us are loved. Some of us already have open hearts, and some of us aren't quite there yet because our hearts have gotten a little beat up this week and might have forgotten how to trust and open. Your heart is welcome here, no matter how bruised. We welcome you among us. All of us are imperfect, but we're here to drop our defenses and trust that what happens in worship is powerful and life-giving. Together, we affirm that this day and our being together can make each of us braver, more compassionate, and wiser than when we woke up this morning. We welcome you here.
Hello again. I'm Pastor Isabel Call, and I thank you for finding us here on Zoom. Please stick with us here for at least the next 4 weeks as we wait for safety to return to in-person services. If he were still alive, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. would have turned 93 yesterday. MLK spoke at the Ware Lecture of the Unitarian Universalist Association in 1966, telling us, don't sleep through the revolution. But as a white-dominated religion, in many ways, we did. But we're waking up now through our conversation about whether to adopt an eighth principle. This proposed principle reads, we, the member congregations, covenant to affirm and promote journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions. We are indebted to MLK for the spirit and language of this principle. We owe it to him and many other civil rights martyrs to live it. Today is a national holiday in their honor and a day of service. I invite you to reflect this morning on what action you will take tomorrow in service to this principle. Today, we're talking about the backpacks we carry as we journey toward spiritual wholeness. We pause here to pay our respects to those who have traversed this sacred land before us, the many native nations who utilized the plains as their hunting grounds, even those with ranges as distant as the Delaware, and those who settled here, including the Kaw, the Osage, and the Pawnee. The wisdom they carried was invaluable, but it wasn't respected by white colonists. We owe our predecessors here and their descendants, wherever they are, deep amends. As a fellowship, we are still learning the scope and scale of the harm, and we're still exploring how to make real our commitment to repair. The racial justice team is meeting this afternoon at 4 p.m. on Zoom. All are welcome. Show up with an open heart and the willingness to make an accountable commitment to action. If you haven't identified the action you'll take for tomorrow's day of service, come to the meeting and we'll help.
While the chalice is lit by Pastor Isabel, please hear these words by Lois Van Leer. We light this chalice on the brink of a new year, letting go of what has been, open and hopeful for what may come, renewed, restored, ready to live life fully anew. May we move forward with intention.
May we move forward with intention. Our chalice is lit.
Thank you very much, Isabel. And I'm going to talk a little bit about my backpack. It's my backpack for life. And it's just like the book title, All I Really Need to Know I Learned in Kindergarten. I got my basic tools for life as a young child, and actually pre-kindergarten. By the way, the only diploma hanging in my office at K-State is my diploma for graduating kindergarten. I've got a picture of that here. I got my Bachelor of Rhymes. The basic tools I learned as a young child include the golden rule. Treat other people as you would want to be treated by them. Sharing what I have. If you can't say something nice, don't say it at all. Clean up after yourself and live a balanced life of hard work, happy play, and useful learning. These practices for a good life came from my mother, father, brother, and sister. They are much like the so-called 7 heavenly virtues of prudence, justice, temperance, courage, faith, hope, and charity. I've had all of these somewhere in my backpack my whole life. Of course, you can guess where I'm going with this. These 7 virtues can be put in stark contrast to the alternatives we know as the 7 deadly sins: pride, greed, wrath, envy, lust, gluttony, and sloth. I'm told and believe that every one of us has practiced these sins at some level, or many of these sins, and at different times in our lives. In fact, knowing that every human has the potential to practice these sins can explain why there are some bad people in the world, or it might explain why good people can have bad behavior under certain conditions. We are not saints. I learned about racism and ethnic hierarchies as a child from my mother. She was an Italian immigrant to the USA. This photo shows my mother as a 9-year-old girl standing on the left, the oldest child to Donato and Rosa Savino. The baby in white was born in the US after their arrival. I knew from a young age that my mom was from Italy, but she seemed like any of the moms in our town, as American as apple pie. Then one day, while visiting our extended family in Altoona, Pennsylvania, I saw Aunt Caroline, actually my great aunt, who spoke with a strong Italian accent. My mom went up to her and broke into fluent Italian with a classic Italian accent. Then I realized that my mom was different and had adapted so well to her life here in America. Now, in the mid-1920s, Italians were looked down on as criminals, such as the notorious Sacco and Vanzetti and the organized crime boss Al Capone. To combat prejudice, my mom's family Americanized their name from Savino to Savine. My mom learned English right away and got rid of any accent. My grandmother Rosa died during or soon after the birth of her ninth child. And my grandfather died just 1 year later. On his deathbed, he made my mom promise to take a scholarship she was offered to college. The orphaned children were doled out to their godparents, but my mom looked after the older kids who were finishing high school, and she took responsibility for raising her youngest sister, my Aunt Betty. It was not an easy path, but she found ways to thrive. One of her choices, eventually later in life, was to marry my father, who she loved very much, and he was tall, white, and Protestant. This gave her the opportunity to leave the Catholic Church. Both my parents were the first college graduates of their families. Both eventually got master's degrees in social work. They seemed open-minded to ethnic differences. They were proud to have many Jewish friends, for example. My mom worked early on as a teacher and mentor at a Black women's prison. When I talked with her about her growing up in Italy, I learned that she still held ill feelings toward the Roma ethnic group, which she referred to with the pejorative, the gypsies. I grew up in a white suburb of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, on the west shore of the Susquehanna River. After we settled there, my parents learned that local realtors would purposely refuse to show properties to Black families. They regretted they had bought a house in this town, but they needed a place to live, with good schools for the children, close to work for my parents, etc. There were also no Black people in our big Methodist church that we attended in downtown Harrisburg, even though the church was surrounded by mixed-race neighborhoods in all directions. I Googled racism in my hometown of Camp Hill the other day, and it reported it is now 70% white and 30% people of color. So things have changed a little, maybe a lot. However, one current activity going on now with the local school board is a movement against the critical race theory. Sound familiar to any of us in Manhattan, Kansas? My backpack now has the basics for a good life that I learned as a young child, and the knowledge of racism that my own family suffered while my mother grew up as an Italian American. I know racism is wrong, but I certainly could use more tools to dismantle it. Now for a time of all ages, please listen to Down in the Backpack and the words from our own Sandy Nelson. Feel free to put your Zoom in gallery and view this dance.
When the teacher calls and says, "Did you get my note?" And she says she didn't get the one you wrote. Look in the backpack, just look and see. Down at the bottom, that's where it's bound to be. When your kid says that she can't go on the trip because she didn't hand in her permission slip, look in the backpack, look if you dare. Down at the bottom, you're sure to find it there.
Down in the backpack,
There's a big surprise.
down in the backpack,
Don't you wonder what
down
lies?
in the backpack,
Something's starting to grow.
down in the backpack,
Maybe you'd better not go down in the backpack. There's the yogurt that they left there yesterday. Last week's tuna fish they meant to throw away. Down in the backpack, there they'll stay, never again to see the light of day.
down in the backpack,
Treasures to be
down in
found,
the backpack,
something crawling
down
around,
in the backpack,
lost library books.
down in the backpack,
Maybe you'd better not look down in the backpack. Oh, let me see what's in here. Look at these headphones. I have to wipe the lasagna off them. This looks like a report card. What's... Ouch! What the cat? Down in the backpack, there they'll stay, never again to see the light of day. So when things get lost and you don't know where they go, and you ask your kid and he just says, "I don't know," look in the backpack, it's not too late. Archaeologists moving in soon to excavate.
down in the backpack,
Something smelly and
down
old,
in the backpack,
something covered in mold.
down in the backpack,
So many things there
down
reside.
in the backpack,
I think there's something that died down in the backpack.
Okay, hold on. Grandma's gonna read a book for everybody now. Come on. Yeah, look, all the people on the video too.
Hi, everybody. This is Sandy. And I'm the DRE, the Director of Religious Education. And this is Evelyn and Allison. And that song made me think about all the things that are in a backpack in my backpack, which is actually a great big purse. Because it's not just kids that have junk in their backpacks. I think it's all of us. So if you have something in your backpack that you want to share, feel free. Adeline, what did you find in Grandma's big bag here? What is this that she has in here that she keeps in her great big bag? Oh, it's not candy. Darn it. It's headphones. And some other odd random things that are in my bag are this. What is this? What does she carry in her purse? It's called barium sulfate liquid suspension. Who needs that in their purse all the time? And books that are huge. about sex. Hey, that's a good thing to keep in your backpack all the time. And, oh, what's this? This is not staged. This is, what is this? It's trash. Grandma had some Cheetos and she put the trash in her purse. And what's this? Oh, that's my wallet. Does it have any money in it? No money. Has some stamps. And what else can you find in here? What's this? This is the lesson plan from 2 weeks ago. And some blank paper. What else is in here? Oh, those are some bills that I have to pay. Oops. And what else is in here? My mask. Your mask. Oh, good. Oh, hey, here's my mask.
We've been looking for that.
Oh, there's your mask. Who's on there? Is that a unicorn? Yeah. Okay. Oh, this is my favorite thing. What does Grandma keep in her purse? Do you remember what this is called? No. Okay. It's called hemorrhoid ointment. Okay. What? Oh, plastic bags. Okay. That was enough silly stuff that came out of Grandma's purse. All right. Somebody else share. What silly things do you have in your backpack? Don't know. I guess we're done. Oh, are we gonna say goodbye? I think that's it. Okay. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much, Sandy. I don't think I want to show some of those things from my backpack, but our Helping Hands offering this month is the project Excel, which serves adults with developmental disabilities at the UFM Community Learning Center. Now, as many of you know, you can contribute to the offering by going to our website at uufm.net and clicking on Donate. You will have the option of giving to the Helping Hands, the blessing box that's located at the Wonder Workshop, or the UUFM general operating budget, or divide among all of these. You may also send your giving by mail. Contributions are greatly appreciated and help to support all aspects of our fellowship. And at this time, please write your joys and or sorrows in the chat of Zoom, and they will be acknowledged by Pastor Isabel. Now let's hear Renee play the piano.
much, Renee. And I know that there's a lot of joy in our congregation to be able to hear Renee's special music and just to be here together. Thank you, Anna, for lifting that up. So thank you all for sharing your joys and sorrows in the chat. I think we should start with Renee's big news. Renee is having a baby. Thank you so much for sharing. We're really, really excited for you, Renee. And please, folks, feel free to just shower Renee with celebration and joy. So also in our wider community, Susan tells us that one of our Afghan allies, Ajmina, gave birth to a healthy baby girl on Wednesday. The baby is named Shama. That is lovely and exciting. Taryn shares that all of our discussions on fair housing and an increase in rent motivated me to apply for a home loan. I got an FHA loan and made an offer on a house here in Junction City, and the offer was accepted. So now appraisal, but closer to being a homeowner. Taryn is super excited, and we're excited for you. So another joy, Les shares that KSU is starting classes. So Mickey and I will be able to see lots of new students and our grad students and colleagues. That's great. And I also hear your concern, Les, that if many or most classes are in person at this point in the local Omicron epidemic, a lot of our students, faculty, and staff may become infected. So I'm glad for you all that you'll be teaching remotely for the first few weeks. And my heart goes out to the people who don't have that choice with their jobs. And moving into some other mixed emotions and sorrows. We have it from Dixie that she's having severe back pain. She'll be seeing a specialist this week. And Jean updates us here that Jessica has volunteered to go with us, which is good news. Good to have family help with things like this. Jane shares a sorrow. She says, my husband's last sibling passed away on Friday. Therese will be missed, but we are all relieved that she has been released from her terrible dementia. Lauren shares a sorrow and a joy. Lynn, who's also here, Lynn's dad passed and is no longer suffering. They will be seeing the family soon. I'm glad to hold that with you both. And we have news of Judy Cattell, which many of you read in the chat. Judy is moving into hospice this week as soon as a room becomes available. Her children, Eric and Cynthia, are with her. Judy is not available for visitors or phone calls right now, but you can email her, and her daughter-in-law, Connie, will read her your message. So I know we have a lot of love for Judy, and this is sad news. So holding that in our hearts. In our larger world, our hearts are with Congregation Beth Israel outside Dallas, Texas, as they recover from the trauma of the recent hostage situation. We also reach out to the families and neighbors of those who died in the Bronx apartment fire and all those whose lives are disrupted and put at risk by unsafe living conditions. And we express our gratitude to first responders and medical professionals. We know that you're fatigued. We pray for relief from the virus and all human ignorance that makes your already profoundly difficult jobs even harder. So for all of these things that we hold in our hearts and those that remain unspoken. Let's take a moment in silence. And now I invite you to rise in spirit or even out of your chair and join as Renee plays and sings hymn 112, Do You Hear?
Do you hear, oh my friend, in the place where you stand, through the sky, through the land? Do you hear, in the heights, on the plain, in the vale, on the main, in the sun, in the rain? Do you hear, through the roar, through the rush, through the throng, through the crush? Do you hear in the hush of your soul, of your soul? Hear the cry, fear once still, hear the heart's call to will, hear a sigh, startling trill in your soul, in your soul. From the place where you stand to the outermost strand, do you hear, oh my friend? Do you hear all the dreams, all the dares, all the sighs, all the prayers? They are yours, mine, and theirs. Do you hear,
Thank you, Renee. So here at UUFM, we have monthly themes, and this month it's intention. But we also have focuses that last the whole year, or longer, or shorter. Our lives have overlapping seasons, and those seasons have themes. So for instance, the theme of the arrival of a new minister, racial justice as a theme, land acknowledgement as a theme. I've spent years searching the planet and my own heart for a community where I can learn, grow, and do good. And so as I arrive here, my theme is the spiritual journey of accountably rooting in place. And I've realized this is my theme of the preaching I've done since I arrived. This is a short version of the proposed 8th principle, journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions. As with the other 7, this proposed principle begins with the preamble. We, the member congregations, covenant to affirm and promote. We covenant to affirm and promote the spiritual journey of accountably rooting in place. A covenant is a shared intention. It's a practice that is fundamental to who we are as UUs, but it's a little hard to explain. This week, I gathered with other ministers and regional staff to discuss covenant, and I was given a beautiful metaphor. The covenant is the terrain that we share as a religious community, our land. The words of our covenant are the map. The words themselves are not the covenant. We're on a journey through the terrain, and the map helps us, but it's not the terrain itself. As your minister, I offer stories and metaphors to help you perceive this spacious and remarkable intention we have, this commitment to each other and to beloved community. Ultimately, we will choose words as a congregation for our land acknowledgement at the beginning of the services. And as an association of congregations, ultimately, we will choose whether to adopt the 8th principle or to completely write all of our principles as we revise the Article 2 of our bylaws. But the commitments we make will not live in the words. And the words we choose will not hold the commitment forever. They will need to be revised. Do you get what I'm saying? One of the things in our backpacks is a map of the terrain. But can we actually experience the terrain? Don't let the map distract us from being present. A feature of white supremacy culture is worship of the written word, an obsession with building structures of thought and ideas, and then mistaking them for truth. White supremacy culture distracts us from the terrain itself. It looks down on people who don't speak its language or who speak it with a thick Italian accent. It bulldozes people who live in relationship with the terrain without the legal protection of maps. I'm speaking in metaphor, but I'm also speaking literally. Colonizers of this land brought land titles and then barbed wire to secure them. Their structures made them feel safe. They declared independence using words, and then built a skyscraper of laws on top of that, which they fortified with armed militias, which they then used against anyone who was not a white landowner, especially enslaved people who wanted the same kind of independence that the laws ensured for white landowners. The white supremacist default approach to safety, to fortify and weaponize, to otherize and exploit with words or with objects. It's a trauma response. It's not an innate human behavior. How many generations of assault does it take for this to become our default way of operating, even when we're no longer a victim? Well, how about the 40 generations of the Dark Ages and the Middle Ages, 1,000 years? Now, a more hopeful question. How many generations of reverence for the interdependent web of all existence preceded the arrival of Europeans on this land? More than 40. And how does this live on as resilience, embodied in the descendants of this land, now many of them displaced to other places? And how is resilience embodied in the descendants of enslaved Africans? One of the insights of Resmaa Menakem, the trauma specialist I introduced you to last week, is that as horrible as chattel slavery was, it's a younger institution than European brutality. Now that's like heavy topics, but I'm sharing it because it gives me hope. I've heard that enslaved Africans braided seeds into their hair when they were leaving their motherland, and those seeds have continued to feed their communities and mine to this day. I believe their descendants carry with them many other seeds of liberation for all of humanity. I believe the descendants of this land also carry vital items, seeds, practices, knowledge of the earth. These seeds may be more accessible to the descendants of the displaced and enslaved Americans than to me, because white supremacy distances me from my own land-loving roots. We advocate for reparations because we believe in justice and because humanity requires the wisdom and leadership of resilient people in order to survive. These resilient people have got something in their backpack that I, as a human, that all humans need. Audre Lorde writes of her community. Those of us who have been forged in the crucibles of difference, those of us who are poor, who are lesbians, who are Black, who are older, know that survival is not an academic skill. It is learning how to take our differences and make them strengths. For the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. They may allow us temporarily to beat him at his own game, but they will never enable us to bring about genuine change. And this fact is only threatening to those women who still define the master's house as their only source of support. End quote. As I've come to realize that the master's house is booby-trapped, I've come to understand that I need copious amounts of respect for women of color in order to survive. What they've got can't be stolen. We just have to cooperate. I just have to cooperate. So, lucky for me, what is the first thing I pull out of my backpack? I'm still looking for it. Here it is. Respect. So what else is in our backpacks as we journey around this beautiful, injured, contested, beloved terrain? Here are some of the answers from those of you who attended Action Wednesday last week. Talent, nature lovers, acceptance, ways to be involved, friendly faces, sharing ideas, goodwill, dedication, compassion. My backpack is getting heavy. We have wisdom, intelligence, comfort with ambiguity and imperfection, tolerance, curmudgeonliness, humor, love, humility, support, caring, trust, respect. I'm going to put these in the chat so that you can look at them. These values are essential. We've inherited them from a long and storied movement, some going back to Jesus, some even further, many, much further. I have faith that they can transform our culture. They are not the master's tools. But let's be honest, on their own, just these items in our backpack, they're not working to dismantle those skyscrapers of dehumanizing laws and the militias defending them, even if we manage to convert some people from hate to love. Martin Luther King Jr. said this in his 1966 lecture to the UU community. It is not enough for the church to work in the ideological realm and to clear up misguided ideas. The church must engage in strong action. It is necessary to get rid of the notion that legislation is not effective in bringing about the changes we need in human relations. That argument says you've got to change the heart in order to solve the problem, and you can't change the heart through legislation. Well, there's some truth in this. Before we can solve these problems, men and women must rise to the majestic heights of being obedient to the unenforceable. I would be the first to say this. He goes on, it may be true that morality cannot be legislated, but behavior can be regulated. It may be true that the law cannot change the heart, but it can restrain the heartless. The law cannot make a man love me, but it can restrain him from lynching me. And I think that's pretty important also. And so while the law may not change the hearts of men, it does change the habits of men. So it is necessary for the church to support strong, meaningful civil rights legislation. End quote. Now, there are some great things on the list I just read to you of what's in our backpack that will help or sustain us in supporting civil rights legislation. But there are some things missing. Now, I don't mean that we don't have those things in my backpack or in our backpacks. We do have them, but we didn't put them on the list. So do you have any guesses about what I'm talking about? What is not on that list? And you can look in the chat and see and look at it. What's not on that list that we do have and we actually need to use? Feel free to type your guess in the chat. I see a few guesses. Love, dedication, passion, courage, willingness, empathy, action, love, determination, faith, companions, action, community, spiritual awareness, lobbying, getting a little warmer, kindness. Well, I'm not seeing the thing I'm looking for. What I'm looking for is power. We have power. It's just really complicated to use it. When we use our power, it disrupts those who benefit the most from white supremacy. And I should say, when we use our power as Unitarian Universalists, when we use our power rooted in our values, it disrupts white supremacy. And so the system has gotten clever at making us forget that we have power. We don't even put it on the list. But everyone has power, and our power grows exponentially when we join together. I'd like to take a few minutes to talk specifically to the white folks among us. In 1988, white feminist Peggy McIntosh wrote, "I was taught to see racism only in the individual acts of meanness, not in invisible systems conferring dominance on my group." Because she didn't engage in those individual acts of meanness, Peggy McIntosh believed she wasn't involved in racism. This is common for white folks. But white dominance is a moment-by-moment experience that makes our lives easier. If we don't perceive the relative ease in our lives, we can't understand we're complicit in a racist system, and we can't dismantle it. She refers to white privilege as the things we carry around in our invisible knapsack. And she lists 50 of these things. I can go shopping alone most of the time, pretty well assured that I will not be followed or harassed. I can be sure that my children will be given curricular materials that testify to the existence of their race. I can be pretty sure of having my voice heard in a group in which I am the only member of my race. I can swear or dress in secondhand clothes or not answer letters without having people attribute these choices to bad morals or the poverty or the illiteracy of my race. I can do well in a challenging situation without being called a credit to my race. I'm never asked to speak for all the people of my racial group. I can be pretty sure that if I ask to talk to the person in charge, I will be facing a person of my race. If a traffic cop pulls me over, I can be sure I haven't been singled out because of my race. It really stinks that I, as a white person, carry these things around with me when people of color do not. But that doesn't mean I should throw the list away, because it actually shows me where some of my power is. Many of the things on the list are good things that everybody should have. The trust of salespeople, accurate education, respect as an individual, freedom of expression. I leverage my power for good by noticing I have these things, expressing gratitude, and sharing them with others. For example, we have the power to start a land acknowledgement practice and advocate for educational reform. Other things on the list are get out of jail for free cards that people who are not white don't take for granted, like a sympathetic ear when I have to interact with a demoralizing institution. I leverage my power for good by noticing these things, using the card to get out of jail, and then dedicating all the time I would have spent in jail in service to those who are still locked up. But I have to notice I'm using the card in order to do that. Some things on the list are daily demoralizing experiences of people of color that I might participate in and not realize. I might judge people of other races, ask people to speak for their race, or take up a lot of space in a conversation where I really just need to listen. This is really common among white UUs. Often, even if we're not doing the behavior, we're there when it happens and we don't notice, or we do notice and we don't do anything. I leverage my power for good by noticing it and stopping it. And there is training available to us white people to learn how to notice and stop this kind of behavior. Okay, one more from her list of things in our invisible knapsack. I can worry about racism without being seen as self-interested or self-seeking. So I pulled that out because I've preached a lot about racism since I got here. And I'm thankful to have gotten encouragement from many of you. So that's a privilege that many of my colleagues of color do not receive, even Unitarian Universalist ministers. They cannot preach about racism on a regular basis. Monthly would be pushing it. That's one reason I do. I can. And we need to be talking about racism, especially those of us who are white. So let's review. What do we have in our backpacks? I have 7 things. 1, Tom spoke for many of us when listing the golden rule. We've got relationship skills and relationships in our backpacks. 2, we've got our deep personal and collective intention and commitment to respect each other, our covenant. 3, not only do we have the ability to respect and the commitment to respect, we've got a bunch of words and rituals to remind us that we love and respect each other. 4, we've also got some yucky stuff. Trauma in our own histories and trauma passed down to us through blood ancestors and imperfect teachers and caregivers. 5, luckily, epigenetics tells us that not only trauma, but resilience is passed down through the generations. You carry with you in your body a tiny nugget of every good thing about every one of your ancestors, even the ones who struggled mightily with the human condition. 6, we've got power. When we get together with a shared intention to act, things change. And 7, we also have privilege. Some of us have white privilege, some have male privilege, some have cisgender, hetero, able-bodied, conventionally beautiful, class, neurotypical, or other privileges. When we stop believing our self-worth derives from these privileges and instead leverage them for the good of all, things change. Now, none of this is enough. You and your backpack, I and my backpack, we can't do it alone. We need to go on this journey together. I need some of that stuff in your bag. But more importantly, I need you. I need you to be well, to be yourself, and to be whole. And so on that note, I invite you to rise in body or spirit and join our choir in singing, "Come and Go With Me to That Land."
Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land where I'm bound. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land where I'm bound. There will be singing in that land. There will be singing in that land. There will be singing in that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound.
Our closing words are the 8th principle proposed. We covenant to affirm and promote journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions. May it be so, and amen.